For factory worker Ravi Kumar, wearing a camera has become just another part of the job. As he works, it records every movement he makes, from picking up tools to producing auto parts. But the camera isn't just recording his work, it's helping train artificial intelligence systems.
They're recording our work to prepare and train a robot, which is making us a bit worried, as it will affect our work. It will not only impact the work we do here, but it will mean job losses.
Ravi's concern is shared by many workers here. The factory pays its workers about €1 an hour to record their work, on top of their regular wages. But that small bonus comes at a cost. Workers say the cameras have brought a new kind of anxiety to the factory floor.
When the camera is on your head, you fear making mistakes. We always feel that if the employer watches the recording, our mistakes may get caught. The camera has taken away some of the freedom we had to work without fear or pressure.
The man behind this project is factory owner Rahul Jaswani, who oversees the recordings as part of a growing business. But Jaswani, the workers fearful of losing their jobs, are not his immediate concern. He sells these first-person recordings to companies building humanoid robots. For him, it's simple. Workers training AI is a win for the factory.
I'm excited about AI technology. It will increase productivity in my factory and bring more efficiency. There will be fewer mistakes in what we produce. Also, it will be very profitable for us. It is very good for business in the long term. That's why I'm very excited about these humanoid robots and that they'll be coming to India and that they should be deployed in our factories.
In April 2026, this video of textile workers at a factory on the outskirts of Delhi was among the first to go viral. It sparked a debate over whether workers are helping train AI models that could one day replace them. In the weeks since, similar videos have spread across social media, showing Indian workers filming themselves at factories and construction sites. One company turning that footage into a business is Labeler AI. It's this firm that extracts and processes the data from the factory while Ravi works. The company turns hours of video into training data by identifying and tagging every single action. It then sells that data to AI companies, mostly in the United States.
AI is moving from digital world where GPT or chat GPTs to a physical AI. What I mean by that is like robots are going to be a reality. They're going to work in the factories, do our work, automate a lot of menial work for us, and to build those algorithms, the one way to train these robots is to collect humans doing this task by putting variables on them.
And the demand for this kind of data is booming. Morgan Stanley estimates the humanoid robot market could be worth $5 trillion by 2050, with nearly 1 billion robots in use worldwide. In that race, India has become one of the most sought-after places to train them.
We have huge demand. The demand is like, simply to quantify it, it's 1 billion hours, for example, over the just next 2 years needs to be collected to just even make the robots able to at least, start working in very basic tasks in the factories or warehouses.
That scale of collection is exactly what concerns Avinash Kumar, a labor economist. He says the emerging AI economy raises big questions about ownership, profit, and fair compensation, questions that remain unanswered.
You see, the workers are facing a double whammy. One is that they are being exploited. They are being taken away the value that they are generating by converting their human skill into a data set. And second, that their factory owners are watching and is monitoring every moment of action that they are doing. So it's a kind of a control regime, it's a surveillance regime that is coming into.
For Avinash Kumar, the law has yet to catch up. He says there is no specific legal framework on how workplace recordings can be used to train AI. Back at the factory, Ravi Kumar and his colleagues continue with their daily routine. Every moment still teaching the machine to do their job. Whether this technology will create new opportunities or replace these workers remains unclear. What troubles them most, they say, is that right now India has no protections in place for workers training AI.
Well, as you heard, the workers we saw in that report are being paid an extra euro an hour to wear those data cameras. But how generous is that? Well, Mishi Choudhary is a technology lawyer and civil liberties activist who practices in New York and New Delhi. As for her experience of these situations.
I think the workers themselves told us what their experience has been. We obviously look at it from a policy, law, and technology point of view, where there doesn't seem to be any one institution that owns the entire chain of who collects this data, what is the worker actually being paid for, whether they are given any additional payment for all this egocentric data which is being collected. Because this problem is that the transaction is not being recognized for what it is. They are supplying more than physical labor. This is embodied knowledge they have, how to grip some irregular object, what is the pressure, what is the sequence of a complicated task, etc. And that knowledge is precisely what makes the recording so valuable for robotics. My issue mostly is that concern is not this automation or all of this, but the distribution of its costs and benefits. We saw the distinction between what a factory manager is saying, how they see it, because it's good for the factory, and also the person who's labeling and selling the data sets to a global audience. You can see the economic difference between who gets to participate in these gains.
Right.
And that's why it becomes like a low-cost source for human behavior itself. And one of the interesting things one of the workers says is that about surveillance, because there is no prohibition on using the footage for disciplinary or productivity surveillance. There's no separate purpose which has been disclosed. And consent is a complicated thing in a factory hierarchy setting. One, if you are a signature on a form, does not mean that the worker freely agreed, because request is also coming from an employer or a supervisor, and refusing just mean there's no future work.
Okay.
They can be replaced even now.
Well, the sort of change, this sort of change is already having profound effects on our lives, on the way we work, on the availability of jobs. Where is the discourse in India now? And who's looking at and preparing for the day when suddenly there is so much less work for factory workers?
I think that's the central policy questions, exactly about whether AI is going to create more jobs in the aggregate over several decades, and then what happens to a garment worker or a warehouse worker or a junior IT employee whose present occupation will disappear before a credible alternative exists. Now, a lot of debate is concentrated about India's outsourcing industry or Bangalore or startup ecosystem. But a robotics engineer position created in Bangalore is not an adequate answer to the displacement of hundreds of production workers elsewhere. So it's not just about reskilling. India is not talking enough about the transition policy,
Right.
which is that once an automation is happening, what happens to these folks? Because companies are receiving public incentive for AI or automation, but they're not there's no disclosure from them about employment effects or plans for the affected workers today. So the discourse is very much about how we compete with China on frontier models, whether India should have its own frontier models, what kind of compute we can offer, or open source alternatives, considering geopolitics now dictates a lot of access to frontier models. We saw what happened with the US taking away access to Fable 5, but not much about what's happening with these folks.
Okay.
And that tells you a lot about the power.
And that's because the technology is here. It can't be uninvented. It's affecting all of us. Now, Here in Europe, the EU's been quite active in trying to regulate the effects of AI, while the US seems to be content to let it run free. What's the Indian story?
Indian story is a little bit of a mix. Because one of the things which is India is also trying to find a balancing position about they don't want to stop innovation if there is. And the European example sometimes at least tells that we can't mistake processes and regulation for outcomes because everybody needs outcomes. And this, as you say, is here to stay. And we are going to see many kind of jobs which are going to change now. And the lesson there is that disruption should not be just accepted because new jobs will eventually emerge. And that's why what India is now thinking about, how not to stop innovation, but still keep going in a direction which doesn't harm. It's not an easy job, obviously. And currently the approach has been, let's just use existing laws, sectoral regulators, etc., and whatever labor law is. But existing protections don't address the kind of employment conditions we are now talking about. And there needs to be different kind of obligations for workplace AI, because this is high impact when it is used to monitor workers, such as in your report, to determine wages, to make hiring and dismissal decisions. It's very because it's also capturing a worker's knowledge for automation. And that doesn't exist in India right now at all.
Good talking to you, Mishi. Thanks so much for talking to us. Mishi Choudhary, a technology lawyer and civil liberties activist.